Ambitious but unmotivated? Carl Jung reveals the dark truth why you ever wake up with this feeling that you're meant for something massive, something almost mythic, but then by the afternoon, you're binge-watching videos or scrolling endlessly, trying to summon the will to do anything that matters. That tension, that unbearable contradiction between ambition and paralysis is one of the most brutal experiences of modern life. And it's not just you. It's a collective psychological epidemic. We live in an age that celebrates productivity, self-improvement, and hustle, yet we are more unmotivated, distracted, and existentially confused than ever before. But what if I told you that Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and philosopher, predicted this exact crisis? What if the root of your lack of motivation isn't laziness at all, but a deeper, darker truth about the psyche you're not supposed to know? Let's begin with a painful but honest premise. We are not as conscious as we think we are. Jung believed that the human psyche is not just a unified mind or personality, but a vast ecosystem of conscious and unconscious forces. And the unconscious isn't just a dump of repressed desires or forgotten memories, it's alive. It has intentions. It has structure. It has power. And here's the terrifying part. It's often in conflict with your conscious goals, meaning you might consciously want to succeed, to build, to create, to rise, but your unconscious might want the exact opposite. It might want safety, invisibility, or even destruction. So now we face a question that cuts to the bone. What if the part of you that doesn't want to get out of bed in the morning is not a malfunction but a message?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love.
Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." What you call procrastination might actually be a rebellion from within. You may have a vision in your mind of who you should be: successful, admired, productive, but if that vision doesn't align with your deeper truth, your psyche will sabotage it. Not out of malice, but out of necessity. Because your unconscious doesn't care about your social status. It cares about wholeness. And wholeness often requires us to confront the parts of ourselves we've buried, the wounds, the fears, the shadow. Now let's talk about the shadow. Jung's concept of the shadow is one of the most misunderstood yet vital insights into human behavior. The shadow is everything you've rejected, denied, or disowned in yourself. It's the traits you were told were bad, weak, shameful, or dangerous, so you pushed them down. But here's the problem. They didn't disappear. They went underground. They became the hidden engine of your life, influencing your emotions, decisions, and energy levels. That's right, your lack of motivation could literally be your shadow saying, "I don't believe in the life you're trying to build, because that life doesn't include me." Think about this. How often do we chase goals that aren't even ours? How often is our ambition shaped by comparison, fear, or the need to prove ourselves? When that happens, the unconscious revolts. It withholds energy. It creates inner resistance. It's not that you don't have drive, it's that your drive is fragmented. Because part of you is sprinting toward an ideal, while another part is screaming, "This isn't who we are." And the more you ignore that voice, the heavier your body feels. The more meaningless your to-do list becomes. The more you start to feel like a fraud in your own life. Let's pause here and ask something terrifying but necessary. What if your lack of motivation is your soul's way of protesting the person you're pretending to be? That's not an easy question, but it opens a door to a completely different conversation about ambition. Maybe ambition isn't just about setting goals and grinding harder. Maybe real ambition, is about alignment. About building a life that includes every part of you, not just the parts you show on LinkedIn or in your vision board. And that means reckoning with your shadow, not to destroy it, but to integrate it. Because until you do, it will keep dragging you backward every time you try to move forward. Jung believed that true motivation doesn't come from the ego, it comes from the self. The self is the totality of who you are, including your conscious and unconscious mind. And when your actions align with the self, motivation becomes effortless. You don't have to force it. It rises from within like a river finally unblocked. You feel like you're being moved by something greater than your own willpower. You're not just disciplined, you're possessed by purpose. But to get there, you must go through the underworld of your psyche. You must ask, what am I running from? Whose dreams am I chasing? What part of me have I exiled in the name of success? Because if you don't ask these questions, you might end up building a life that looks impressive but feels hollow. You might achieve everything you wanted, only to realize it was never what you wanted. And that's the ultimate tragedy. A life lived from the outside in, instead of the inside out. In the next part, we'll go even deeper. We'll explore how your shadow forms in childhood, how it gets reinforced through culture and trauma, and why your most powerful creative energy is locked inside the very parts of yourself you've tried hardest to forget. The childhood blueprint of your shadow, why your dark side holds the key to your true purpose. Let's go back, not just in memory, but in structure, to your childhood. Not the highlight reel, not the warm nostalgia, but the raw architecture of your psyche as it was being built. Carl Jung believed that the shadow, the hidden, denied, and repressed parts of ourselves begins forming in early life. Not because we were defective or broken, but because we were adaptive. As children, we were infinitely sensitive to approval. We learned very quickly what parts of ourselves were acceptable and which parts triggered disapproval, punishment, or shame. And so, like little architects of survival, we started constructing a false self, a mask, a persona that could win love and avoid rejection. But in doing so, we unconsciously buried huge parts of who we really were. Think about it. Maybe you were told not to cry, so your sensitivity became weakness. Maybe your anger was punished, so your fire turned inward. Maybe your wildness was scolded, so your creativity dissolved into self-doubt. Every time you heard "don't be like that," a part of you was quietly exiled. And those exiled parts, they didn't die. They became your shadow. They wait below the surface, unexpressed but fully alive, shaping your emotions, sabotaging your goals, and haunting your motivation. You're not lazy, you're fragmented. You're ambitious, but your ambition is filtered through a version of yourself that was sculpted for survival, not for truth. Now here's the wild part. The exact traits you buried are often the source of your unique genius. Jung knew this. He believed that the shadow wasn't just the dark side of our personality, it was the golden side too. The shadow contains your disowned power, your unlived potential. It holds your emotional depth, your intuitive insight, your creative chaos, your assertiveness, your sensuality, your rage, your tenderness, everything that didn't fit the mold you were forced into. And the more you repress it, the more life begins to feel like a performance. You wake up ambitious but feel hollow. You set goals but can't move toward them. Because the energy that fuels real purpose is locked in the basement of your psyche, screaming to be heard. But here's what no one tells you. The journey to reclaim your true drive requires darkness. It requires going back down into those memories, those emotions, those moments where you split from yourself. Not to relive them, but to retrieve something. To say to your younger self not "why were you like that," but "what did they make you hide?" That question alone can rearrange your entire inner world. Because suddenly, your lack of motivation starts to make sense. It's not a flaw, it's grief. It's protest. It's the consequence of living a life that excludes the parts of you that carry your fire. Let's pause here and ask a deeply uncomfortable question. What part of you did you kill just to be accepted? Do you see how deep this goes? This isn't about time management hacks. This isn't about waking up at 5 a.m. and writing affirmations. This is about soul retrieval. Because until you reclaim those lost parts, you will always feel like something's missing. You'll keep chasing after goals, hoping they'll fill the void. But the void isn't out there, it's the absence of your own wholeness. And here's the paradox. The more you try to bypass your shadow with positivity, productivity, or perfectionism, the more unmotivated you become. Because real motivation is a byproduct of integration. It comes when your inner child, your shadow, your truth, and your conscious mind are aligned in the same direction. This is why Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Your darkness isn't the enemy. It's the unlit part of your potential. It's the truth that was too dangerous to live in a world that couldn't hold it. But now you can. You can go back. You can listen. You can retrieve it. And when you do, you'll find a strange thing happens. Energy returns. Not just physical energy, but spiritual momentum. The kind of movement that doesn't feel like force, it feels like freedom. So here's the next essential question. What if your true calling lives in the parts of you you're most afraid to look at? In the next part, we'll unpack how to actually confront and integrate the shadow. We'll explore the practices, the psychological tools, and the radical self-honesty required to unlock the energy that's been trapped in your unconscious, and how doing so can ignite a motivation that doesn't just help you achieve more, but transforms who you are. Turning toward the shadow, how radical self-honesty awakens your buried power. There is a moment in every person's inner journey where the choice becomes unavoidable. Keep running from what haunts you, or finally turn and face it. That moment is terrifying, not because your shadow is inherently evil, but because it's true. It holds truths you've spent years denying, traits you've disowned, memories you've repressed, and impulses you've labeled as wrong. Too much, or not enough. But what if you stopped running? What if, instead of trying to fix yourself, you chose to meet yourself? Not the curated version, not the social self, but the full, raw, unfiltered being you've always been, buried beneath layers of fear, shame, and performance. That is the beginning of integration, and it starts with radical self-honesty. Carl Jung didn't believe in fixing the psyche. He believed in making it whole. That means we don't eliminate the shadow, we incorporate it. We don't conquer our flaws, we understand their origin. We stop seeing ourselves as broken machines in need of optimization and start seeing ourselves as fractured souls in need of truth. And truth, when it comes, is never sterile. It's not a clean, quiet realization. It's messy. It disrupts the narrative you've told about yourself. It shows you that maybe your people-pleasing isn't kindness, it's fear. That your avoidance of conflict isn't peace, it's self-erasure. That your ambition isn't always purpose, it's sometimes a cry for validation. This is what turning toward the shadow looks like. Pulling back the veil and saying, let me see everything I've hidden, even if it shatters who I thought I was. And yet, paradoxically, this shattering is where real motivation is born. Because as long as parts of you remain exiled, your energy will be split. Your soul will be in conflict. You'll feel like you're pressing the gas and the brake at the same time. You'll hustle outwardly but feel hollow inwardly. But when you integrate the shadow, you recover your full psychic bandwidth. You stop leaking energy into shame. You stop wasting effort maintaining a false identity. And then something miraculous happens. Your desire to act, to build, to create begins to feel natural, not forced, not manic, not desperate, just aligned. But this doesn't happen through willpower, it happens through witnessing. You have to witness your own contradictions without flinching. You have to admit what you really want, not what you're supposed to want. You have to sit with your jealousy, your rage, your envy, your lust, your grief, and ask, what are you trying to tell me? Because those emotions are not enemies. They're messengers. They arise when your inner world is out of sync with your outer behavior. They flare up when your soul is being ignored. And if you numb them, judge them, or suppress them, they will find darker ways to express themselves. But if you listen, they will guide you to the places within that are crying out for integration. So how do we do this practically? We slow down. We journal not to vent, but to reveal. We track our triggers not to blame others, but to understand ourselves. We notice when our energy drops, when procrastination strikes, when resentment simmers, and we ask, what part of me is being dismissed right now? We stop trying to be better and start trying to be more truthful. We let go of the obsession with becoming someone else and begin the sacred work of becoming more fully ourselves. This isn't comfortable work. It's not sexy, doesn't trend well, but it is the work that transforms. Because once you've seen your shadow and embraced it, not excused it, not indulged it, but understood it, you become untouchable in a way that's hard to explain. You no longer live at the mercy of external validation. You no longer chase goals that aren't yours. You no longer need to prove your worth through productivity. Instead, you act from a place of inner authority. You move through life with a quiet power that comes from knowing exactly who you are, including the parts you used to reject. And this is the real mystery Jung pointed us toward, that the source of your greatest weakness may actually be the seed of your greatest strength, that what you've called laziness may be wisdom, that your resistance may be your soul's way of saying, there's a deeper path you haven't walked yet. And when you finally turn toward that path, when you stop trying to become and start trying to remember, you will feel something ancient and electric reawaken within you, purpose. Not the kind you wear like a badge, but the kind that burns from the inside. So let me ask you now, in the stillness of this moment, what truth have you been avoiding because it would require you to change your entire life? And what would happen not if you forced yourself to act, but if you finally aligned with who you really are? In the final part, we'll explore what it looks like to live as an integrated being. We'll discuss how wholeness, not perfection, is the new foundation for ambition, and why motivation becomes a natural expression of your inner alignment when you stop running from your shadow and start walking with it. Wholeness over hustle, how inner alignment makes motivation unstoppable. Let's imagine, just for a moment, what your life would look like if you stopped resisting yourself. Not in some vague, feel-good way, but deeply, radically. What if you actually allowed every part of you to have a seat at the table? The ambition, yes, but also the fear. The confidence, but also the doubt. The vision, but also the pain. What if you stopped fragmenting your identity just to fit into a world that rewards performance over presence? Carl Jung's great insight was this: the goal of life is not to become perfect, it's to become whole. And when you are whole, motivation is no longer something you have to chase. It becomes inevitable, because wholeness generates energy. It dissolves inner conflict. It clears the static between who you are and what you do. We're taught to hustle, to grind, to push through resistance. But here's the truth no one tells you. When you're living in alignment with yourself, the deep, integrated totality of who you are, there is no resistance. There is only movement. There is only flow. Your actions feel meaningful, not because they're easy, but because they're coherent. You're not fighting parts of yourself anymore. You're not dragging a wounded inner child through adult responsibilities. You're not suppressing your truth just to avoid discomfort. You're living from the center of your being, and that center has gravity. Jung called this the process of individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming who you truly are. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about returning to someone ancient, someone buried beneath years of conditioning, trauma, and societal programming. And when you begin to live from that place, your ambition transforms. It's no longer about status, success, or proving yourself. It becomes a sacred impulse, a natural unfolding. You don't motivate yourself any more than a tree motivates itself to grow. You just follow the energy wherever it leads, because now, the source of that energy is you. This doesn't mean life becomes easy, but it becomes clear. You still face obstacles, but you're no longer split in two. You're no longer at war with yourself. And that inner unity, that's the real superpower in a world addicted to external validation, because you're no longer motivated by fear of missing out. You're no longer driven by shame. You're no longer chasing someone else's dream. You're simply doing what your soul came here to do. And that kind of motivation is immune to burnout. It's not a fire you have to stoke every morning, it's a current that carries you, even when things get hard. So how do you know when you're aligned? You feel it. You feel it in your chest, in your gut, in your breath. You feel it in the way time changes when you work. You feel it in the silence between distractions. You feel it in the way your body doesn't resist the task, it leans into it. There's a deep yes, a quiet certainty, a sense of rightness, even if what you're doing is difficult. And when you lose that feeling, which we all do, you don't panic. You pause, you listen. You ask, what part of me is not being heard right now? And you bring it back in, again and again. That's the practice. That's the path. Jung never promised that integration would lead to happiness in the conventional sense. But he did say it would lead to meaning. And meaning, real meaning, is stronger than happiness. It's stronger than discipline. It's the kind of force that makes motivation irrelevant because you're no longer pushing yourself to act. You're being pulled by something deeper, something unmistakably you. So let me leave you with one final question, one that could change everything if you answer it honestly. What would your life look like if you stopped trying to become someone and started trying to be whole? Because maybe the problem was never that you lacked motivation. Maybe the problem was that you were trying to build a life that your soul didn't believe in. And maybe, just maybe, the moment you stop running from your shadow is the moment you become unstoppable.